So, I finally did it. I finally went ahead and bought my first piece of test equipment for making music with. Now, I don't know an awful lot about test equipment for making music, and especially not for the purpose for which it was intended, but it has intrigued me for a long time, because trying to make music from a device that wasn't intended to be used in that way is not only challenging, but I think it requires some inventiveness and exploration, and I really enjoy that aspect of music making. I like the process of discovery, and so I've bought a piece of test equipment and I'm going to try and use it to make some interesting sounds and ultimately hopefully some music. So if that sounds interesting to you, let's get into the video. Okay, so here is the piece of test equipment that I've bought. It is a function generator. This is just a device that will generate a signal. It will allow us to switch between different waveforms. So we have sine, triangle and square wave. We have an offset amount that we can dial in here, and we have an amplitude on the output. The main controls that we have are the frequency, this dial here. So this goes from 1 up to 11, and we have our multiply here. So we have times 1, times 10, times 100, times 1k and times 10k. So
the numbers all go to 11.
This essentially will give us a tone from anywhere between 1 hertz or 1 hertz, 1 hertz, 1 hertz.
Exactly.
All the way up to...
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly.
1000 hertz.
Where can you go from there? Where?
I don't know.
Nowhere.
Is that right?
It's not 10.
No, 11 times... Oh no, that's going to be 110,000.
It's 1 louder, isn't it?
Is that right? Yeah.
These go to 11.
Okay.
Exactly.
So let's just very quickly just take a listen to this.
I'm not hearing anything.
Okay.
You would, though, if it were playing. It's quite unbelievable.
Okay, let me turn up the volume a little bit.
You can go and have a bite. No, you still be hearing that one.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we are getting. The question might be asked, why would you use this rather than a synth?
It can't be played.
I guess my belief is that any bit of equipment that you get, especially when it's kind of not really designed for the purpose that you're using it for, it kind of forces you to be a little bit creative, to find ways to make it musical. And in that sort of exploration, I personally take a lot of fun and enjoyment out of the process, and it does sometimes lead to some interesting sort of accidents and just unexpected sort of results, really. So anyway, so we're running this into my mixer, that's going to the audio interface, and then that's going into Logic. I'm going to just actually play around and record a bit of a performance in. Now what I would like to do is, to make this more interesting, is I'm actually going to run the aux out of my mixer back into a channel on the mixer which is going to give us a feedback. And now this will actually allow us to get much more interesting tones, and especially if I'm on the square wave, we should Okay, let's record this. This uses these connectors, which are BNC, and this thing here is a BNC to phono adapter, so that will allow me to connect this to here and plug in a phono cable. Now there are three outputs on here. We have a sync out, an AC out and a DC out. I've found that the DC out gives us quite a smooth output, a lot more low frequency information and less high frequency information. The sync output, however, is quite harsh sounding, a lot more high frequency content and less low frequency content. So what I'm doing is I'm actually using both of these, and if we come down to the other end here, at the other end of our phono cable we have these phono to 1/4 inch adapters, and then I'm also running both of these into one of these adapters, which just allows us to combine two 1/4 inch jack inputs into a single output. Okay, so as you can probably tell, I'm having quite a lot of fun just messing about with this. I'm going to add some effects to this and we'll see what else we can generate with this little device. Okay, so it's been a couple of days since I recorded the first bit of video. I've been working on the track that you heard at the top of this video. I'll play you that in full in a moment, but I just wanted to walk you through how I use the function generator to create part of this track. And what I did was I generated a kind of an ambient layer that I think adds a real sense of depth and movement to the track. And I used the function generator to do that. I'll show you the process of how I did that in a moment, but first we'll just have a look in Logic at the track. We'll take a listen to the ambient layer in the context of the track, and then I'll show you how I put that together. So here we are, this is the track. Let me just play you a bit of this intro. So we've got this little piano layer, but then we also have this atmospheric layer. And if I just take off, I've got some processing on here, so let me just take that off for the moment. So this is the original audio. So it's quite a noisy, sort of atmospheric, quite bass heavy as well, layer. Almost like a psychoacoustic layer. In the mix you don't really notice it too much. However, if I take it out, you certainly feel its lack. So this is with, now without. I mean, most of the elements are still there, but something feels lacking. Now if I bring it back in, it really gives it a pulse and an atmosphere, I think. So the way that I'm getting that kind of pulse, what I'm doing, I'm actually using a tremolo for one thing. With the drum beat, I used half time on the 1.5 time setting. So that kind of gave us a triplet feel with the drums. So I'm using a triplet tremolo to add some of that movement. But the main sort of pulsing aspect to this. So this is just with the tremolo. What I did is I sidechained this to the kick of the drum beat. So I used a sidechain trigger every time the kick is hitting, and that is linked to a gate so that the sound is gated according to the trigger. So let me bring that in. But then we've also got the tremolo as well. And now with the rest of the track. And I think that just gives a real sense of sort of propulsion, a sense of movement. And this ambient track has got quite a lot of character as well. So it kind of brings that character to the track. So let me jump over to the other project where I generated this ambient layer, and I'll talk you through the process of how I did that. Okay, so this is the ambient layer. Now in the actual track, I did do some additional processing to this where I layered a kalimba on top. So there were some other textures and elements, but essentially it sounds very similar to this. There's some processing on here. I'll come back to this in a moment. This is the original layer. So let me just solo this and I'll take the processing off. This is what was coming from the function generator. It's just simply a sine wave at about 60 Hertz, I believe. And then what I'm doing from there is I'm using the pitch correction in Logic. and I've got that set to an A major scale. I think further down in this recording, I think I did actually pitch the function generator up, and so I wanted to sort of snap it kind of to a scale, although in the finished track I think it just stays at one pitch, just a constant drone. So yeah, that was droning away at 60 hertz, and then from there what I'm doing is I'm adding additional pitches using Pitch Monster, which is by Devious Machines. Now I'm using 3 different instances of Pitch Monster, and I believe the settings that I have here are not the settings that I used to create the example in the track, but the concept is the same. So essentially I've just got 3 different pitches here. We've got plus 12 semitones, plus 16 and plus 19, and as you can see the mix is down on all of these at around 30% of the wet signal as opposed to dry signal. I'm also using a bit of, or quite a lot of, the unison and the wide features to give a bit more stereo spread, but that essentially takes it and gives it some kind of chordal information. So you can hear that's quite a difference. There's quite a difference from this pure sine wave. Now, because it's coming from this device, it isn't as clean as a sine wave that you would get from a VST synth plugin, but I quite like that you're getting some analog inconsistencies and noise. But yeah, so we're generating like quite a lot of chordal information. So it's still sort of just droning away, but it gives us more of a sense of some kind of harmonic framework, if you like. Then on top of that, I'm adding OTT, which brings out quite a lot of noise in the higher frequencies, which is a bit too much. So then what I'm also doing is I'm adding at least 2 lots of halftime. I may have even used 3 in the original recording, I can't quite remember. But essentially what I'm doing here is I'm filtering everything above about 1.5, 1.7 hertz. And on the first instance, I'm using the ×2 mode, and on the second instance, I'm using ×4. In my head, I'm kind of folding back those higher frequencies rather than just using an EQ where we could sort of roll those frequencies off and cut them out. With halftime, it's actually pitching them down either sort of 1 octave or 2 octaves. So we're not actually getting rid of the character of that noise, but we're folding it back down the frequency spectrum, which I really like. And then I've just got a bit of EQ on the top to boost back some of the higher frequencies, which may or may not be necessary. Especially, I like that kind of very eerie kind of character to it. But if we jump over to this track, which is the bounce of that audio with a different set of harmonic relationships, I'm then using the same halftime trick, filtering everything above 2.2 kilohertz on the ×4 setting, and then again I'm EQing even more of the high frequencies out. So that's essentially how I'm generating this kind of ambient layer with some chordal information. But that's just one other way to make use of this function generator, and I quite like using it like a drone machine, using a lot of plugins to add some other harmonic and sort of textural elements. So I might as well just play you the full track, and then I guess I'll see you again in the next video. I hope you've enjoyed the content. I hope you've stuck around to the end. I know a lot of you don't. That's fine. But for those that do, the true ones, I'll see you next time. Until then, peace out. You're right, Jakey. Is it too hot for you, buddy? It's too hot, isn't it? Shall I put the fan back on? There we go. Is that better? It's really hot today. I'll see you soon.
No, you've seen enough of that one.